Welcome to the wonderful world of dance, bringing you exclusive interviews with top dancers and choreographers and reviews of the world's best companies across the globe. You can find lots more on our website at thewonderfulworldofdance.com.
Hi, this is Savannah Saunders, and with me today is Rosie Kay, artistic director and choreographer of her own award-winning contemporary dance company called the Rosie Kay Dance Company. The company is presenting an exciting and intriguing new piece called MK Ultra, which the company will be touring across the UK. In addition to running her own company, Rosie is an academic and was the first choreographer as artist in residence at the Oxford University. She's also choreographed for films and other site-specific work, so I'm really excited to have Rosie here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great. No, it's great to be here. Thanks for asking me.
So, first of all, let's have a chat about your new piece, MK Ultra, which I understand is an explorative piece about the secret but famous Illuminati. Tell us about the Illuminati and where your interest in this subject came from.
So the Illuminati is supposedly a kind of secret elite organisation that controls the music industry and a lot of mainstream media entertainment. It's a conspiracy theory, and the idea that I've kind of focused on is that this Illuminati used something called MK Ultra, which is a brainwashing technique that actually did exist. It was funded by the CIA, and they were trying to look at wiping human memory, but also implanting false memories in brains. And it was stopped in the early 1970s. The conspiracy theorists believe that it continued, and actually they teamed up with Disney and they started brainwashing child entertainment proteges. And so one big first example of this is Britney Spears.
Wow.
So she was programmed, she was the perfect pop princess, but the twist is that the programming doesn't work. It starts to falter and their brains start to fight back. And we all get this information that they've got drug problems or addiction problems, or they're having a breakdown, but actually they're trying to fight against their handlers. That's what they're called, the people that kind of control these pop stars. So that's what happened to Britney Spears, and they have to be taken away, reprogrammed, and then they come back very compliant, kind of mute pop stars again.
Goodness.
So it's not as unknown as a conspiracy theory. I'd kind of found out about it researching all the conspiracy theories that are out there. Actually, I started with everything and found this and thought, actually, this is a really interesting one. So I went out and I did a whole series of workshops across the East and West Midlands with 14 to 25-year-olds, and I went to talk about media representation. But this word, the Illuminati, would sort of pop up. And the kids would go crazy talking about it in a school class. So that's when I thought, actually, this is something that is well known. It's quite a widespread conspiracy theory, but lots of us over 25 don't have a clue. We might have heard of it, but we don't really realise what the meaning is. I suppose the deeper meaning of what this Illuminati is supposedly trying to do is they're trying to control us and spread quite dark messages that mean that almost like trigger images and trigger symbolism, so that they can control us subconsciously. That's the kind of worrying reason why they're doing it. So they're using mainstream media to brainwash us.
Goodness, that is worrying, isn't it?
It is. And my bigger political point with the piece is that maybe we are all a bit brainwashed, and maybe our brainwashing is starting to falter a little bit, and we need to kind of wake up and look at what world this is. So yeah, that's what it's about.
Absolutely. And so what can audiences expect to see in the piece MK Ultra?
So I want it to be like super slick, glossy. It's taking a lot of that pop video aesthetic and that kind of music award sort of pageantry and sort of poof, kind of in your face, slick and glossy and wow, amazing. And I'm playing with that language. So I'm kind of trying to do something really avant-garde with it, like take all this kind of twerking, whacking, voguing pop styles and mash that up with a contemporary aesthetic. But with that, we also got incredible set, incredible costumes by Gary Card, and video all the way through. And the video almost has its own brainwashing power as well. So it's a huge 5-meter high triangle in the back of the stage. And my husband, Louis Price, is doing these absolutely amazing bonkers videos that go with the dance. But also with that, because I went and met Adam Curtis, who's this amazing BBC filmmaker, journalist, and he actually really managed to convince me that this story that I'm talking about is really interesting, and our audience over 25 really need to know about this story, and that it's not just a mad conspiracy theory, it's the fact that a lot of people believe in this as well. So we've got these documentary elements made by Adam Curtis that just help explain basically what I've said to you, but through really beautiful music and imagery and Adam's narration. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you will by the end.
Yeah, so it sounds like a piece that, anyone can really, come into contact with and learn something new and really experience a performance, but also get a little bit of education at the same time.
Well, it really has to work on like quite a lot of different levels, because there's going to be a lot of people that know exactly what I'm referencing and they'll get it and they'll get the jokes in a way, and there's going to be a lot of people that's going to go over their head. So I need to kind of explain what some of this stuff, what the symbolism is meaning. And then I suppose on the other hand, it's just going to be great dance. It's going to be amazing dancing. It's been such a joy to like just go to town with the dancing. I love it.
And how did you approach the choreography for the piece? And as you say, this great dancing.
So this is a totally bizarre way I've done this. Actually, I always end up inventing like a new process for every work that I do.
Okay.
But I'd done quite a bit of R&D with dancers, and I was setting tasks, and I was getting more and making them watch lots of pop videos, and I'm getting more and more specific. But I wasn't quite getting what I wanted, and it was like I felt it in my own body. I really felt what it is I wanted to see. So I started doing some improvisations and filming them, and thought, I do know, because I've trained in street and hip hop and break and jazz and pop and, mostly contemporary, but all sorts of other styles as well. And so I actually spent a week in December doing like sort of 3 to 4 improvisations on very precise themes and timing to specific bits of music. And I picked the best ones, and the dancers had to learn them exactly from video.
Wow.
So I'm kind of controlling them like the Illuminati. They've got to do it my way. So it's less creative, but once it was a pretty kind of heavy first week where everyone was sort of attached to laptops and iPods and stuff, like with headphones, learning their steps. But once we've got over that, it's really amazing, because the material, I mean, I'm 40 now, and I know what I want, and my body's still kind of very usable, but I don't really want to perform anymore. But when I see it on their bodies, it's just fantastic. It's really cool.
And it's interesting, actually, this process of the young dancers learning via video,
yes,
which is quite modern tech, isn't it? Really,
it is, exactly. And after I spent that week, I just had two regular dancers that I work with a lot come in to just see how long it takes, because I didn't really know. It was like, okay, I've got a 1 minute solo. How long is that going to take to learn? Thinking it would be like, an hour. There was one section, it took us 8 hours to learn like this one bit of dance. It was so complicated and fast what I was doing. But it kind of taught me, like, just give it time. And actually all the dancers, 7 of them, have just got quicker and quicker and quicker. I can sort of hand them something and they can do things really quickly now. But it is quite difficult to learn that skill. But actually I found out from a military friend that that's one of the skills they have for like high level kind of spies, is that they have to do a lot of video work for recognition and for drone. And I was kind of like, whoa, yeah, this is a bit modern way of learning stuff, isn't it? I'm
sure they would have found it really interesting experience from the dancer's perspective as well. That would have just been quite exciting for them in some ways.
Well, and I made it really clear in the audition. They actually had to learn something when it got to the very final round of the auditions from video. So it was like, this is what you're going to be doing in the show to learn the show. So it wasn't like they kind of came in expecting to improvise for a week. It was like, no, you're going to come in and learn stuff for a week. But then once they've learned it and they really own it, then it becomes really creative, actually. So it's just like, it's very much an opposite way around to how I normally make work, but they really own it. It's really interesting, actually.
And you say this is quite a new process for you, or an inverted process almost. How would you normally describe your choreographic language and your approach?
So I'm kind of not someone that just makes a style in terms of the steps. I'm quite interested in like finding the right language for the idea. So I feel like my job is to generate really interesting ideas through dance, and then I find a process and a way for that then to achieve my vision. So it's funny enough, like MK Ultra is part of a trilogy. It's the final part, and the first part was Five Soldiers, which I made with a huge amount of field research with military experts, with really learning what soldiers do, and then pulling that into the world of dance. So a lot of that was made through taking real set military maneuvers and then finding ways to turn that into dance. And then the second part of the trilogy was There Is Hope, and that was about religion and belief. And that was entirely made from improvisations. We literally did spend 2 weeks improvising nonstop, and through that I constructed the dance, and things became set by the end, but it all came from improvisation. And then this is actually, quite frankly, the sort of exact opposite. I've created all of it, and then they have to learn it, and then I devise a story from that through the material. So I suppose it's always thoroughly researched, and then it always ends up being really physical and visceral. And I try and make work that kind of, it's emotive, it's emotional, and it kind of hits you in the gut. That's the kind of work I want to make.
And the subjects that you seem to have chosen for this particular trilogy, they're quite deep, they're quite intense subject matters.
Yeah, yeah. Why not? I want to ask the big questions and put my interpretation on the world. It's really important. I don't want to be an autobiographical artist that's just looking at myself. I'm looking at the world and I'm trying to make sense of it all the time. And I'm reading philosophy and I'm reading my history and I'm trying to think what an artist should be doing now is really questioning the world and making other people really use their brains. So yeah, that's what I want to do.
And it's a really interesting time actually in the world for one to be asking themselves, what do we think about what's going on around us? The world is changing so fast in a way in which I think we haven't recognized for such a long time. And
it's amazing. I've been researching this stuff since I was pregnant, so it must be 2013, and I've been talking to people and everyone's thought I'm completely bonkers. And now, of course, the fake news, alternative facts, how Trump's been using conspiracy theory, I'm like, yeah, I knew this was coming. And
it's so important for art and particularly for dance to respond and to address and to challenge what's going on.
It's harder and harder out there. Like how do we get audiences? How do we make ourselves relevant? Everyone's busy. Everyone's sort of stressed. Everyone's got there's austerity measures. We do in this country. We're so lucky in the UK to get a bit of public subsidy. Like we have to really prove why we're here and what we're doing, and that it has worth and meaning and value that's not of just an economic kind. So I feel like we're going to have to really fight to prove what we do is important.
And what inspired you to set up your own dance company in the first place? What was the initial inspiration?
Oh, well, I suppose it goes back to when I was a dancer professionally, but I started making work in my first year out of college, making my own. I made a solo show actually, and I enjoyed being a dancer, and I needed to be a dancer. It was important to me, but I knew I was a choreographer. It just took me quite a while to admit it to myself. Because once you admit to what you really, really want to do, you could fail at it. So it took me quite a few, it was about 6 years of working professionally as a dancer, as a performer for other people and making my own solo work before I really needed to set it up in order to start applying for bigger grants. As soon as you want to work with more than just yourself or with one or two other people, you can apply for larger grants. And so I wanted to put a level of protection around that. So it was at that point, it was very practical. And then I sort of grew into it, really. It almost seemed quite audacious at first to call myself a company, but I needed to do it to almost to say to the world, this is what I'm doing and I'm taking this really seriously. So.
And as a female artistic director and choreographer, how important do you think it is that women are represented in the creation and the management of new work and new companies?
Well, it's just really sort of disappointing that it isn't automatic. People are still having to be really pointed out to them that their programming is gender biased. It really does have to be pointed out to people still. It's almost like everyone thought the battle was won, kept their eye, took their eye off the ball, and actually the forces of patriarchy and misogyny are so deeply woven and embedded in society that if we don't make really concerted effort, it seems like it just falls back again. So I just find it disappointing because I grew up with a lot of female role models in dance and found it, I just didn't expect it really in my generation to be facing such a backlash, I suppose. It's kind of a sort of post-feminist backlash, and we to sort of say, women make choices and women have babies and women aren't ambitious, and we just know that's rubbish. The evidence does not back that up whatsoever. I go out now and publicly say I am ambitious and I want to get on the big scale, and I am overlooked. I have been overlooked. I don't get recognised as women haven't been recognised as early in their careers as men. That's fact. And they've done the research. Tonic Theatre have done some really good stuff. So come on, everyone, change it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because obviously dance is perceived and is mostly populated with women. Particularly in the classical dance world, where you've got more female dancers and just in general more female dancers than male dancers, and yet there are so many companies that are headed up by men. And who create narrative and create ballets and create dance, and it's so great to see a female at the helm of her own dance company, and it would be great to see more women and the female narrative being performed, and I think it's really important.
But it kind of drives me mad as well a little bit because someone once sort of said to me, why are you looking at soldiering and wars? Why don't you just do it from your own perspective? And it's like, actually, you wouldn't say that to a man. A man is allowed to make art about the world. That's it. A woman somehow always has to make art about being a woman. No, I want to make art about the world. I just don't get it.
Yeah, absolutely. We have views on every element of the world, every piece of society. We don't necessarily just have this feminine viewpoint about feminine issues.
That's right. It's pretty patronising, I think. Yeah. and I feel like I've certainly proven it with Five Soldiers. We're now doing Edinburgh Festival with the Army, so we're helping them curate and programme a small festival programme with Five Soldiers, with some funding from the Army and LIBOR, and it's like, we're not just making a work about it. The Army are taking us seriously and taking my work that seriously. So it kind of feels good.
Yeah, well, it's due recognition, and it is great work. And as you say, it's based on a lot of research and a very academic approach. And so I think it is only right that the work is taken seriously. Apart from this particular trilogy, what other projects that you've had in your career have been real highlights to you so far?
I've got a big soft spot for the work Double Points K that I made. It's a reinterpretation of Ennio Greco's seminal work, Double Points 2, because I was sort of challenging myself both as a dancer and as a choreographer. I danced that work for quite a lot of years, and just now Shelley Hayden has taken my role. But that was about making a piece that was abstract, no narrative, just pure dance, music, but I wanted to get some kind of like really strong emotional response from the audience using those tools. And actually it was so beautiful teaching Shelley. I mean, it was tough. I didn't realise what a impossibly difficult piece it is technically. There's loads and loads of like multiple turns backwards on the left going around someone in the dark and all this kind of stuff. But watching it, sitting in an auditorium and watching something that I made maybe nearly 10 years ago, but I've never sat and watched, was a really amazing experience. So I love that piece. But I do enjoy the site-specific works that I've made, things like the Great Train Dance and Hailing Dreaming. I mean, I really, really love education work. I love working with young people and training young people and giving them an opportunity to work and dance alongside professionals, because I know for me that was some of the most inspiring stuff I did as a child was work with adult professionals. So, I like making these big projects that feel really good to do and really exciting to be part of.
And what has been some of the most challenging elements of being an artistic director?
I suppose the vagaries of funding and the insecurity of financial life. There's this kind of you really go down a different path than your other friends that have jobs and salaries and holidays and pension. And I've probably sacrificed a lot of other parts of my life in order to pursue this. I'm lucky enough to be married to another artist, so we're both.
So he understands.
Exactly, and we. I think we're just getting to the point where we feel like we're making this work. But there's certainly been some scary points. Actually, being pregnant and having a baby was a super scary point, and it was. It did feel like actually if I don't manage to get this back together, there is no job to go back to. So much as I wanted to take more time off and be with my baby, actually I had to just work up to the birth and start back quite soon. So that was actually genuinely, I think every woman feels like, oh, it's not going to happen to me, I'm going to do it differently. But actually it was super hard, and really shout out to all the female artists that are managing to hold together careers and children, because I just know it's hard.
Yes, I can absolutely imagine. And so what do you love the most about your job? Despite all the challenges, you say, what do you love the most?
Well, I mean, I suppose from the research side, I absolutely love stepping into other worlds. I really love it. And I really love watching and observing and understanding, things like anthropology or the army or even conspiracy theory, like just going deep. That's so pleasurable. I mean, I love having, being able to use my imagination like all the time. That's really brilliant. But I'd say like one of my favorite bits is in the studio, where you've kind of gone through a bit of a tricky phase just to get everyone on your side and in your team and up to kind of speed. But where you first get this flicker of the vision coming to life with the dancers, that's amazing. And it feels, normally it's just you, there's no one there, it's not like a sharing or anything, but it's just when you feel it in the studio, and it feels such a privilege to have that, to be creating art from nothing is just a privilege.
And going forward, what is your vision for the Rosie Kay Dance Company?
Well, our plans to make like a big work every second year, so that gives me time to research it, and in between time we make a slightly smaller scale sort of single work or double bill or something. So I spent a lot of time in the past 2 years putting a big business plan together for the next 5 to 10 years. And I really was honest with myself and said, what do I want to do? And I want to create, I want to make work, and I want to be moving into the mid-scale and large scale. But I don't want to forget the small scale, because that's a really interesting place to try ideas out and experiment as a choreographer as well. So I've got quite a few new ideas lined up, and quite a few I'm already researching, and then some of the ones that I think I want to do, but I'm still a little bit scared off, and I'll wait and see how they happen. So I'm kind of reading and taking things in at the same time as sort of pursuing the work that I'm doing at the moment.
And what is it about those pieces that scares you? Those projects?
Oh, it's like a kind of little test for me. If it really scares me, it normally means it's the good idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I try and go towards my fear. I try and go towards it, and see where it takes me. So yeah, but this particular idea, I have absolutely no idea how I'd tackle it. But yeah.
And
where'd you go after the army? Where'd you go after war?
Yeah, my goodness.
I'm kind of looking more internally, actually. So yeah.
And finally, as a successful female artistic director, and don't you hate having to put that female bit first, but what advice would you give to other young women who would aspire to become an artistic director and run their own company? What advice would you give to others?
Do you know, I mean, one bit of advice, I can't remember who said this to me or if I read it or something, but that you can only be an interesting artist if you've had a bit of an interesting life. And I would say don't be in too much of a rush to begin with, because like I want to be in a long game with this. But I really spent some time, actually literally scaring myself, traveling, working abroad. I ran a wine business briefly for a bit. Like I really did different stuff, and I lived and I traveled and I learned different languages and I watched and saw, and I kind of had to find out who I was a bit by challenging myself. And I'd say really take care of that aspect, because that gives you much more to talk about as an artist in your work than if you're just straight out of dance school and straight into making work. Like, make work, but take time to invest in yourself. You're not just a tool for your dance or for your choreography. It's a rich world out there, and you want to make yourself as rich and as varied as possible as well. So challenge the way you see the world, challenge your prejudices, challenge your perception of things, and go out there and explore before you're ready to, you may know that you want to be an artist or a choreographer or a director, whatever, but take time to invest in yourself first.
Well, Rosie, that's fantastic advice, and I'm looking forward to hopefully be able to catch MK Ultra on the UK tour, and I wish that you and the company the best of luck with the tour. For those people listening, you can get your tickets to see this exciting show at mkultra.dance. And you can check out more about Rosie Kay Dance Company on the website rosiekay.co.uk. Thank you so much for joining us, Rosie.
Don't forget to subscribe. We've got some incredible interviews coming up with principal ballerinas and renowned choreographers. We love dance and ballet, and we hope you'll love us. Join us on Facebook and Twitter.